All right, welcome back into RaceHub. We've doubled the amount of Hall of Famers we have in the house. Now we got Ray Evernham sitting down with us in studio. His new book, Trophies and Scars, is out now. We're going to dive into that more in just a little bit. But first of all, I got to say it's a pleasure to have you in here joining us, especially anytime you and Chad are going to get to chop it up, because I know you guys are just going to pepper each other with questions. Let me get one in first. What first drew you to motorsports? What awakened the passion in you for this?
You know, I've always wanted to do it. My dad was a big sports guy. I played, baseball, football, everything, but I didn't. I always loved the cars. And early, as 7 or 8 years old, I went to a midget and modified race at a place called Old Bridge in New Jersey. And I just was
Jersey,
always,
I love it. Hey, Jersey guy over here speaking to me.
You got it. You know what I'm talking about.
I grew up down the street from Old Bridge.
Yeah. But fell in love with it right then.
So you fall in love with motorsports, you go race your modifieds, you go to work for Jay Signori and Roger Penske with IROC, you go work for Bill Davis, you meet Jeff Gordon, and then all of a sudden, boom, you get a call to go to work for Rick Hendrick.
Well, I got a call from Jeff was looking at changing some things around at that time. And he said, go over to Hendrick and see what that's like and if that's where I should go. And when I went over there, as you know, I was blown away by what they had. And Rick said, okay, we're hired. And I said, okay, well, I'll be the car builder. I'll be the setup guy. And he said, no, Jeff wants you to be the crew chief. And I said, I don't really want to be the crew chief. I don't know how to be a cup crew chief. He said, well, that's the only job I've got. Take it or leave it. So I ended up being a cup crew chief.
Just like that.
Just like that.
And then you say in your book, or Jeff said in your book that you just referenced with him, that was the first time you were ever a crew chief.
Yeah, I did a few races with Australian Dick Johnson,
yeah.
Right? And that was more of a kind of a team manager thing. Like he was kind of his own crew chief, but that was my first job as a crew chief, and I was scared to death doing it, to tell you the truth.
So when I think about that era, though, you and Jeff Gordon, it was like that was the heyday of me being a fan, and I think you guys won 13 races in 1 year. What made the 24 team so good? Like what was it about that was so strong?
But guys like him, right? Guys that were committed, guys that wanted to be great, that didn't think that they were great, that they made. And I will tell you that was the greatest years of my career, when you work with people who really put the team goals ahead of their own, and they did things. The amazing, that teamwork, again, the way that they committed, the way that they worked, and the way that they strived to be better, that 24 team was more special, I think, than even I knew at that time.
Well, and it all starts from the top, right? And in your mentorship and the way that you pushed us in ways sometimes that we didn't always appreciate or like at the time, but you've done that for so many people that have turned out to be crew chiefs in the Cup Garage. The list is massive when you think about, okay, you've got guys like myself, Rodney Childers, Steve Letarte, Kenny Francis, Mike Shiplett, Keith Rodden, Mike Ford, Tommy Baldwin, Slugger Levy. I mean, how many race wins do you think are up there of guys that you've mentored and taught throughout the years? I mean, that's got to feel great.
Well, I don't know. It'd be good if you guys just sent me just a little percentage of that stuff as it was going. But, that tree is bigger than me, right? That goes back to a man named Jay Signori, the guy that I worked with at IROC that taught me. And, of course, coming from the Penske organization and that culture, and Rick Hendrick, I've been very, very fortunate to have good mentors like Jay and Roger and Rick. So it makes me proud to see what you've accomplished and what some of those other guys have accomplished, because then I know those Jay and Roger and Rick didn't waste their time on me. We've paid that forward and passed it on.
You've done a great job with all of us.
You mentioned being with the 24 was like, one of the greatest times in your racing career, but it ended and you decided to walk away. How hard is that decision, and why did you decide to do that?
That was one of the hardest decisions and most emotional decisions I've ever made in my life, and we do spend a good amount of time talking about that in the book. But things change, times change, cultures change, people change. And Jeff Gordon and I, when we started, we were kids. We didn't know anything, or he was a kid anyway, right? And we grew together, and what he needed in a crew chief was different than I was giving at that time. And I didn't know anything more. And it was one of those times that a change was coming. whether we wanted it or not, a change was coming. So I was offered that opportunity to Dodge to try and do something. Everybody's want to know, we all have that imposter syndrome, like, am I really good enough to do this, right? If I put myself to test, can I do that? And that was a question that I always asked, was I really as good as people were saying as a crew chief or
so you
as a
had some
manager?
self-doubt then?
Of course, I still have self-doubts.
Really?
I came out thinking to myself, geez, am I going to be good enough to be on this TV show? These guys, you ask that all the time. But it was time for a change, and it was an opportunity for me to prove to myself that I could do it.
Well, I will tell you that when we were talking about this show earlier today, we felt like between you and Chad that we had two of the greatest crew chiefs ever. So you should not have any self-doubt about that. It's pretty special to get to have both you guys sitting here at the same time.
Well, I do appreciate that, and it's great to hear and be in those names. Of course, he bumped me down the road a bit, with his here championships and stuff. I was like, man, guy, hey, great. Training me broke every record I had. Bumped me down the list. But when I look at the top 3 crew chiefs, and I'm going to tell you, no kidding. And it's the numbers, right? You look at Dale Amen, you look at Leonard Wood, and you look at this guy. Totally. That's the way I look at the top 3 crew chiefs of all time.
And Chad, what was it like working for him and getting to learn from him?
For me, it was amazing. So, being from Jersey, very forward-speaking, not afraid to hold your tongue, which was great. Being in the Midwest, that's the way we raced as well. Like the guys in Wisconsin and Illinois, we were hard-nosed racers. So, when Ray and I got matched together, like it felt very comfortable to me. I like that kind of push. I'm a very direct individual. So is Ray, and I think we do have some similar qualities, because I do think you mentioned the self-doubt thing a moment ago. I think a lot of very successful people have a lot of self-doubt. I think that continues to drive you to get to the next thing, the next level. But man, working with Ray was awesome. It was very tough at times. We won a bunch of races, and just so not many people know this, he's hired me 3 times. Seriously, so he hired me at the 24 car, my very first job at Hendrick Motorsports. Then I left, and then he hired me again to work with the Dodge Development Program. So I did that for a year and a half. Then I went to Melling Racing, and we shut down Melling Racing, and I didn't have a job. So he hired me again, but I never actually started, because the next day is when I went to my interview with Hendrick Motorsports. And I called Ray and I said, hey, I know this is kind of a pattern, you hiring me, but I think I have another opportunity. And I didn't remember this story until you said it on stage for the Hall of Fame, that he said on the phone to me, he said, if you're not going to take this job, it better be for Hendrick Motorsports. And I was like, well just so happened it is.
It worked out for you.
So but I'm curious. So you've built cars your whole life. I'm from the 2P car to your IROC cars, the Ghost, so many legendary cars in with your Jeff Gordon career and a Dodge and all that. Like, what's your favorite space to be in? Like, what's your favorite era of car that you've ever had?
I like the modifieds. The modifieds have always been special with me, and there's just something about that creativity that you can put into the difference that they look. So that's why we built the Ghost, right? Mm-hmm. It was one of those things. We want to build a car, old-fashioned, put it on the plate, start putting things on. And, again, when you're doing things, you guys have to use so much technology now, and everything has to be so exact. And, it used to be, hey, plus or minus, and you could change your mind. But the modifieds are probably still the coolest car to me.
Yeah, that's cool. They're cool cars. I remember seeing pictures of the 2P car, the modified that Ray used to race. Did you restore that car?
The car is restored, and we've taken it to the racetrack several times, and so we've restored a lot of those modifieds, and we get back in them and drive them probably faster than we should, but it's fun.
Ray, you mentioned the 2014 being this great era. You also started Evernham Motorsports. You had Bill Elliott. I remember Casey Atwood initially had an incredibly successful year with Casey Kane in 2006. When you look back, though, over your career and all you've done, what are you most proud of?
Well, honestly, that tree that you just posted, the people that I worked with, the relationships that I've made, it's great, and knowing that made a difference in the sport, and hopefully a positive difference. I enjoyed the racing stuff, and I also enjoyed TV. I had a blast doing TV. You guys know it's fun, it's cool, but when I look, it's really the relationships that we've made, and I hope in some way I've added positively to the sport.
You have, without a doubt.
For sure.
Well, you know what? We're not done talking with you. We got to dive into this book when we get back. We got a lot of stuff to ask about, including all the stories in this book and what Ray does with his free time. Does he even have free time? It's a great question. I'd like to find out. We'll be right back.